Living longer, living healthier, living better than ever before. Welcome to Mountain Pacific's Healthy Living for Life, a weekly series that gives you the information, education, and expert insight you need to become an active participant in today's ever-changing healthcare climate. Here now is today's program host.
The impact of a concussion can stay with someone well after a player leaves the field. Today we'll discuss concussions and the long-term effects that can change a person's life forever. Our guests include a former NFL player, a sports medicine doctor, and experts from the University of Montana studying traumatic brain injuries. Welcome to this episode of Healthy Living for Life, a show dedicated to helping you do just that. I'm Janet Whitmoyer, your host. Welcome back. I would like to introduce my first guest on today's show. Casey Fitzsimmons is a retired professional NFL player. Casey, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you start off by telling us at what age you started playing football and how you got to the NFL?
I first started playing football when I was, I played in 7th and 8th grade and up in Chester, Montana, and then played my freshman year of high school and then part of my sophomore year and then my senior year. And obviously to get to the NFL there's a lot of steps and whatnot, but excelled on my senior year of high school and had an opportunity and to go play football at Carroll College, and then from there was an undrafted free agent with the Detroit Lions.
Well, that's quite an accomplishment going from Chester, Montana all the way to the Detroit Lions. I read that you chose to retire from football because of concussions. What did the NFL football physicians tell you, and why did you choose to retire?
I don't know if it was really a choice of mine. It was more of an ultimatum. I just had got done getting MRIs on my shoulders, and the front office called and let me know that I was, they weren't gonna offer a contract due to the fact that my concussions were an issue. My decision in it is if I could play right now, I would probably try. But I guess the thing is I wasn't as educated as I am now on the severity of concussions and what the long-term effects were. One is probably because I just didn't want to know, because I wanted to continue to play football. But after finding out the information I know now and stuff, I'd probably wouldn't, go back to play football.
So going on with that a little bit, what did the doctors tell you about the long-term effects of your concussions?
There wasn't really anything said about the long-term effects. I guess I know now just through what I dealt with, and research in concussions, 95% of what we know now has been taught to us in the last 5-7 years. So to their credit, I don't think that they exactly knew what the problems that people can deal with through concussions.
So I know you told me you had multiple concussions while you were at the NFL level. Do you know if you ever had concussions when you were younger, in high school, or even younger than that?
I guess I couldn't recall any at the high school level. I don't think I played enough and sustained heavy contact. Not saying that concussions can't be sustained in low impact situations, but most of my problems arose all of them, in my view and in my mind, arose when I was in the NFL. You're dealing with larger humans, faster, stronger, and the speed of the game is exceptional. So, and most of them were sustained on special teams, whether it be kickoff return, punt return. So, I can't recall any in college or in high school, but that's not to say that there wasn't any.
Well, now that you're retired, looking back, do you think the concussions have changed your life, and if so, how?
Absolutely. I mean, anybody that's dealt with a traumatic brain injury or a brain injury of any sort finds out that things become different. I used to be pretty social, didn't mind being around people and crowds. Now I've become reclusive and more or less just like to keep to myself. And it's not due to the people, it's due to the noises and stuff that I have a hard time focusing on conversations, especially if there's an outside noise and if it's not a controlled environment. And so it's changed me in that way. I think it's made me a lot more aggressive, to where things bother me a lot more. Fortunately, I've got a doctor that I see in Missoula who has really helped me level out and allowed me to function in, small controlled environments. So it's been an adjustment. I think it's been harder on the people that know me due to the fact that they can't, I'm a little bit different. So, but definitely have noticed a change in my lifestyle.
So looking back, if you knew then what you know now, would you have played football?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm a guy that, I live in the present. The past is the past. I can't go back and change it, so I really try not to think about it. But, to answer your question, I would go back and play. I mean, that's something that I loved and still do to this day. Love the game of football. I'm not a fan of the game of football, but I love the X's and O's and just football as a coaching standpoint, or film, not necessarily TV, but just watching it and learning and finding out what new stuff's going on.
Okay. I have one last question, another tough one. I know you have 2 young boys. If they decided that they wanted to play football, would you allow them to do that?
Absolutely. I mean, there's risk in everything that we do in life, and if they choose to play football, I'll be more hands-on. I'll try to coach and help and teach them the proper tackling, the proper hitting, the proper blocking, and I'll be more involved and to help them with that. I just hope that coaches out there recognize that it's not a bell ringing anymore, it's a concussion, and that it needs to be treated by a physician that's educated on concussions and stuff. So who knows in the next 10 years what data and what safety as far as helmets, shoulder pads, and stuff that we'll have available to these young kids. So I would let them choose, and whatever they choose to do, I'll be 100% supportive.
Okay, thanks Casey for coming and telling your story. I really do appreciate that, and I'm sure many others will as well. Up next, we'll be talking to a doctor from Helena who's heavily involved in the youth of football and safeguarding players from concussions. Stay with us. Welcome back. Our next guest is Dr. Buzz Walton of Helena's Performance Injury Care and Sports Medicine. Welcome to our show, Dr. Walton.
Thank you very much for having me.
Sure. The first thing I'd really like for you to explain to all of us is what really a concussion is.
A concussion, basically it's a huge public health problem, and I'm glad that the society is coming to grips that we need to kind of try and do something about it. So a head injury, a concussion, is it's a type of traumatic brain injury that is caused by a bump, jolt, or blow to the head, or even a hit to the head or neck that causes the brain to move rapidly back and forth. Usually on a head injury, they're pretty unique in regards that they're all different, and everybody's different too, so not everyone's going to have the same symptoms. Okay, and they're an evolving process too. So symptoms, an athlete could have symptoms minutes after the injury or 2 to 3 days after the injury. So it's they're pretty unique in that way.
Okay, so sometimes you hear of somebody saying I've had a mild concussion. Are there different levels or types of concussions?
In the past we used to grade concussions, but right now there's no level. A head injury is a head injury, and we treat them as such. So no one's treated differently in regards to that.
You said a little earlier that people react differently to the concussions. Can you tell us what some of the symptoms are of people that have had concussions?
Sure. So the symptoms, symptoms are broken up. There's 4 categories of symptoms of concussion. So one of them is going to be the physical signs. They're going to have the emotional signs. You're going to have the cognitive as well as also sleep. So the physical signs, for example, they can be the headache, they can be the neck pain, dizziness, nausea, and vomiting. Okay. The emotional ones that we see a lot, especially in our younger kids, sadness, depression, anxiety. Okay. We have the sleep category, which these patients are going to have difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. And the cognitive are difficulties with concentration, difficulties remembering. They're going to feel like they have a brain fog, and even word finding difficulties, which is very challenging, especially in our adolescent and our high school age patients.
So if a parent or someone thinks that they've had a concussion, what should they do?
So what should they do? Well, based on the Dylan Steigert's Protection of Youth Athletes Act, that was passed in 2013, if the athlete is suspected to have a head injury or has a head injury, they need to be taken off the field of play. Okay, they need to be seen and evaluated by a healthcare professional who has a basic understanding in concussion management.
Okay. So would you advise parents to let children wait and see, or do you like to try to get them in if they're having a symptom?
It's better to get them in as soon as they can.
Okay.
Kind of what we're finding out. The treatment of concussion is changing every day. We're finding out different things almost every month, what we didn't know last month. Okay. So what I would recommend is getting these kids in as quick as you can, because the outcomes are going to be a lot better.
Okay. And we've heard a term of impact neurocognitive testing. Can you tell us what that is?
So impact neurocognitive testing, it's a computer-based neurocognitive testing tool that we use as healthcare providers to kind of help us evaluate and manage a head injury. And I want to stress a tool. Okay, it's a tool that we use, so that's not going to be the sole thing that we're going to determine to let these kids go back to play. So we have to make sure we use the impact test, we use the physical findings on exam, and we also get the help from the physical therapist. So we use a bunch of things in order to get these kids safely back to school and back to field of play. It's not just using that impact test.
And we've talked a lot today already about concussions related to football. But I'm guessing that people can get concussions from a variety of other sports or activities. Could you tell us some of the other reasons or things that you're seeing that people are getting concussions from?
Yes, so it's not just it's a football-related sport. So concussions can come from football, girls lacrosse, male lacrosse, girls basketball, girls volleyball, male basketball. We even see cheerleaders. We even see dancers as well. So it's not just a football-related injury.
Okay. And we also know or suspect that concussions might have lasting effect on people's memory. Just quickly, can you share with us what you're seeing or what you know about how a concussion can impact somebody's memory?
Well, that's, and we're still, the research is still pending on all that stuff, okay. So we're really not sure on the long-lasting results of a head injury. So we're still we're still kind of waiting for all that research. Okay. But what we're finding is the stuff is still mixed.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Dr. Walton, for coming and sharing great information with us.
Right.
So stay tuned. Next up, we'll hear from the University of Montana's Neural Injury Center. We'll be back at the break. Welcome back. Our next guests are Cindy Laukas and Dr. Tom Rao from the University of Montana's Neural Injury Center. Cindy and Dr. Rao, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Cindy, I wanted to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about what the center does?
Yeah, the center is located on the University of Montana campus, and it was founded in 2014. I went through the Board of Regents, and And it was originally founded to help student veterans get through school, essentially, and particularly those that have brain injuries.
Okay.
And so we started with that, and now our mission is kind of threefold. We do research, we do the screening of veterans and athletes and others, and then we also do education for the public. And we have a strong focus in our research right now into developing sort of multimodal technologies for looking at brain injury from all the different aspects. And so we have developed, our research group has developed some really interesting technologies that can be deployed, rapidly in rural settings. They're mobile technologies for looking. We have a virtual reality cognitive testing unit now. Dr. Rao is working on biomarkers for TBI. And we also have some equipment that's really sophisticated for balance testing and eye tracking, all things that are more objective measures for brain injury. So we're looking at it. We're looking at it from the research perspective and sort of the treatment perspective. We do initial screening for mild TBI.
Okay. Great. Dr. Rao, I wanted to ask you a little bit on the traumatic brain injury, or TBI, and we've been discussing concussions. So does your research show that repeated concussions can actually lead to a TBI?
Right, well, TBI is a kind of a general classification for all brain injuries, and so concussion is a very mild form, or the mildest form of traumatic brain injury. And so there's definitely evidence that individuals that receive repeated head injuries are at greater risk for long-term symptoms and longer recovery. So a big push is to accurately diagnose when someone's recovered from a head injury, so they don't go back out and receive another injury while the brain is still healing from that first.
Okay. So can you tell us what maybe the top 3 long-term effects of a traumatic brain injury might be?
Yeah, it seems that most individuals that are having long-term symptoms, they are difficulty in concentrating, headaches, and memory impairment. And that's not an all-encompassing list. There are some other things, sensitivity to light and noise, social anxiety, but the headaches, the concentration, and the memory difficulty tends to be the most prevalent.
Okay. Cindy, I wanted to come back to you. With people who have had, a TBI, is there any remedies that you can, that they can do that would help them improve, or is this just learning to live a new normal type of life for them?
Well, there's not a magic bullet,
Okay.
But there are a lot of things that can be really helpful. People can, be retrained for, say, balance issues. They can get help for mood issues, either through medication or counseling. There are different things that can be done for memory, techniques for memory, and, different ways of accommodating things. And then a lot of people with brain injuries suffer from cognitive fatigue. And so just actually taking breaks when you're doing something that's really mentally taxing and not doing it all in one big chunk can be very helpful. There is a lot of help out there, but again, there's just not a magic bullet, unfortunately, but there is, not to despair, because there are ways to deal with the symptoms.
Okay. And Dr. Rao, I wanted to come back to you. There's been a lot of question about whether traumatic brain injury will eventually lead to dementia or some other type of long-term effect like that. Is that something that you found in your research, or through anybody else's research, to be a true statement?
Well, there's evidence that a very small population of individuals that receive repeated head trauma will go on to develop chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is a chronic neurodegenerative disorder. That number of individuals is very, very small, so it doesn't happen frequently, but there is evidence that repeated head trauma can lead to some major issues later on in life. The research is still really developing, because for the longest time people haven't really acknowledged that concussions are dangerous. And a big reason for that is there's no neuroimaging, that can actually detect that. So you can, with a broken bone, you can see that, but with a broken brain, it's very, very hard to visualize that. So there is evidence that repeated head trauma can cause some issues later in life, but there's definitely more research that needs to be done on that.
Okay. And Cindy, I kind of wanted to follow up on that, that sometimes when you have a broken bone, but have you done any research or have any information for people who may be suffering from a brain injury, but they just don't know it?
So that's a lot of the people we see at the center, are people who come in and they've had these symptoms that are just unusual for them. They have a lot of trouble sleeping, they can't concentrate. In fact, many people don't realize they have a brain injury until these symptoms become so problematic or so long lasting. So that's actually very common.
Okay.
There are lists of symptoms that could be a brain injury that may cross over with other things, and they can be subtle changes. It's usually just when they become very problematic, like students who can't study or they can't read, they can't comprehend the reading anymore.
Okay.
That are just things to be aware of, or just headaches that won't go away, things like that.
Great. This has been extremely good information. I'd like to thank both of you for sharing your perspectives. And I would like to thank all of our guests for being here this morning, and I hope that you found today's episode intriguing and educational. Until next week, stay fit, stay well, and stay healthy for life with Healthy Living for Life.
Healthy Living for Life is brought to you by Mountain Pacific Quality Health. We'd love to hear from you. If you have suggestions for future programs, visit our website at mpqhf.org or call us at 406-443-4020. You can also catch us on YouTube by visiting our website and clicking on the YouTube icon. Special thanks to Fire Tower Coffee House and Roasters. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions.